Hey, somebody tagged the side of the building again.
That's the third time this week. Do you think it's the same person?
I can't tell. It seems like some conceptual Banksy type stuff.
That could be interesting. What's it look like?
It's pretty boring. Actually, now that I think of it, it might be a no parking sign.
Welcome to Rewind Video. I'm Bob.
I'm Rob.
And we love movies. Good ones, bad ones, old ones, new ones, artsy films, fartsy films, and everything in between. Am I right?
You are correct, sir.
So, Rob, one morning last week, I was eating some cereal, reading the local newspaper before work, and that shouldn't come as a surprise because, you know, if
Every town has a newspaper. Everyone knows what we're talking about.
Right. And I'm somebody who commits himself to facets of our culture that are guaranteed to stand the test of time. Video stores, newspapers.
Printed newspapers.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes. That's my shtick. In the paper, I saw a short piece about our beloved place of business, Rewind Video.
It's about time then the media started taking notice.
Yes. There was mention, of course, of our wide selection of movies, Cochrane's one-of-a-kind popcorn recipe, the regularly vacuumed carpet. But that's that's not why I make mention of the article. If you'll permit me, I'd like to read a short excerpt from this piece. The real reason to pay a visit to Rewind Video is the staff recommendation shelf. If the sea of films spanning new releases and classics, indie to blockbuster, foreign and domestics, proves intimidating, you can always trust Bob and Robb's staff recommendation shelf to steer you in the right direction. This small corner of the store is a true work of art.
Well, that is very true. I agree with it wholeheartedly. And by the way, did I tell you I got a new job at the Alt Weekly?
Okay, I'm starting to connect some dots.
Yeah.
Well, it's high
totally
praise.
Unrelated.
It is high praise. I think it's deserved.
Yeah.
And here we are. Once again, time to update the staff recommendation shelf. As has been established, you and I are tasked with this responsibility. Each week we choose 6 films that deserve our customers' attention. Each time we rotate in new movies, we adhere to a theme. And this week's theme is art.
Behold, the art of movie podcasting. I think we were the first ones to do a podcast about movies.
I've never heard another movie podcast. I'm sure there's some now, but you know, we're
probably
3 years in.
Yeah.
So yeah, the world's catching up.
Yeah. But yeah, it's truly an art.
It is truly an art. Watching movies, recommending them, talking about it.
Mm-hmm.
So, as per the usual, I can't remember for the life of me who chose this theme.
Oh yeah, I forgot to. I think it was mine.
Was it yours?
Yeah, I'm not really sure. I'm not assigning blame anymore.
Yeah, you know, it's a combined effort.
Yes.
We both agree on these, and we both enjoy choosing our movies. You know, usually we, at least with a couple of our picks, choose some films that have some critical acclaim attached to them. They're recognized as being good. That is not necessarily the case with a couple of my films tonight, which we'll talk about when
you don't
we
need to apologize going into the episode.
I'm not apologizing at all. In fact, my reason for bringing this up is that I don't care if people like them or don't like them. These are truly some of my favorite movies within this theme, and I'm proud to recommend them.
Well, I think that's true every episode, at least for me. I don't care if the audience agrees with me or not.
Yeah.
I'm here to recommend these movies to you.
I've talked to a lot of people who are wrong about a lot of things on a regular basis, and you know, it's just another week.
But that is kind of an aspect of art. It's
exactly
it's in the eye of the beholder, as it were.
Exactly, Rob. Yeah,
you know,
people disagree on art all the time.
Yeah, and we're going to get into that with some of these movies, I think. But yeah, it's like you don't get to decide what art is for somebody else, or vice versa.
Right. Well, you know, I did want to quickly make mention of the fact that I would recommend that for our theme tonight, people watch Portrait of a Lady on Fire again.
Yes.
If it weren't, I don't know, a bit of a faux pas to bring a movie we've already talked about. Back to the
we
Show.
have a strict policy about such things.
Yeah. So we're not going to do that. I still recommend it. In fact, I've done the next best thing, which is update my 4 favorites on Letterboxd, and I've added Portrait of a Lady on Fire to my 4 favorites because the more I sit with this movie, the more and more I love it, and I think people should see it.
There's some good art in that movie. That some good painting. It's always fun to watch people paint.
It is. So, watch that, but also watch the 6 movies we're going to talk about. You always get us started, and I think tonight should be no different. So why don't you launch us into our first art film?
All right, let's get fired off into the world of art.
Yes.
First movie I'm choosing is from 2007. It's called My Kid Could Paint That.
I had not seen this.
Excellent. I'm glad you got a chance to check it out.
Yeah.
This is filed under smear campaigns. Here is the back of the box. A look at the work and surprising success of a 4-year-old girl whose paintings have been compared to the likes of Picasso and has raked in hundreds of thousands of dollars.
That is the story.
That is the story. There is no tagline.
Doesn't need it.
Yeah, I guess, I don't know.
I mean, with a title like My Kid Could Paint That, you know.
Tells the story.
Yeah, that's it.
The picture on the box tells you what the movie's about. This is a documentary about Marla Olmsted, a child artist who briefly gained worldwide attention when her abstract paintings started to get popular in her town, and it kind of ballooned out from there. It's also about her parents, who attempt to navigate this family through the sudden fame and the inevitable controversy.
Yes.
This was an era when documentarians were started to be way more likely to put themselves into the narrative.
Yeah.
And this was like a trend that I guess probably still happens a little bit. I think this is like the post Michael Moore era. And I don't know. There's a lot of this going on, and I don't think it really helps the story here.
I don't think it helps the story. I can't blame the documentarian for having an opinion on what unfolds.
Yeah. But the opinion is being had by other people in the movie. He doesn't need to put himself.
He doesn't need to. Well, all I'll say is that this movie raises a lot of questions about what this girl is exposed to and how much she deserves to be a part of and what choices she has. And I could see a moral quandary arising around, like, how much do I, the documentarian, want to continue inserting myself, and do I need to, if I'm going to pull out, explain why? I
think, though, that, he's making a documentary about this, and the director, his name is Amir Bar-Lev, and I don't know, I just feel like he has an unformed opinion. Yeah. And his job as the documentarian is to explore these things. He doesn't need to say on camera, "Hey, I'm trying to figure this out." Yeah. You're making a movie about it. That's the whole idea.
Let the audience figure it out. That's fair. That's fair.
So the whole story of Marla's art gets turned on its head when there's a 60 Minutes story on her. And what at first seems like a puff piece profile kind of turns on a dime into what, in my opinion, is kind of a half-assed investigation into whether Marla's actually making the paintings on her own or whether her dad is helping her. And, they don't really have a lot of evidence of the dad helping. What they do have is an expert who comes on screen and watches Marla paint this other painting. And she kind of concludes, she's like, oh, she could, based on what I've seen in this video, she could never have done those other paintings. But then she also literally says, I'm speculating here. Right. But I think maybe the dad could be helping her, maybe. Yeah. And that just becomes the narrative, the dad's doing these paintings.
Very quickly.
Very quickly. Which, is enough to bring the whole thing almost crashing down. It kind of, everything falls apart, and then they're like, no, fuck it, we're going to keep doing this. I don't know. Do I think the dad helped? Maybe a little bit.
Really?
I'm not saying here's what I think happened. I think he did the normal dad stuff. He's like, hey, try some of this stuff, or here's some more paint or whatever. Hey, that looks good. Why don't you whatever? And I think it got to a point where he could never admit that he would do even that much. Do you know what I mean?
I can see that take. I happen to believe the dad absolutely just painted them.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Well, there is a section of the movie where they
Yeah.
show two paintings that we know Marla did. They're both recorded. We see her painting them. And then, the documentarian puts them up against a series of other paintings,
Right.
all which look dramatically different, not only from the paintings we know she painted, but even from each other. And that is where it convinced me. But there was also something else. I had a big problem with what these parents did with the kid by like parading her around, having her at art shows. It felt like they were taking her and forcing her to live the life of an artist, and she didn't sign up for that.
Yeah.
It felt to me like the dad especially was in it for money.
I think these people didn't really know what they were getting themselves into.
Yeah.
And yes, we see Marla and the family going to like these art galleries and stuff, but that's 2 or 3 over the course of like 3 years. This could be like a once a year thing, where
Maybe.
she's coming to these things, and I think they just didn't know what they were getting themselves into, and I think especially the dad, I think they saw some dollar signs and they're like, well, we'd be stupid not to do this. Like, we don't have to pay for college anymore. Like, that's
right.
And they would be stupid not to do that. If they're like, hey, we're going to pay you hundreds of thousands of dollars for these paintings that your 4-year-old did.
Yeah.
As far as the difference in style, I mean, yeah, I see what you're saying, but also I think like the difference between a 3-year-old and a 4-year-old and a 5-year-old, I think that's completely reasonable to think that you would be doing completely different things with paint when you were 3 as opposed to 5.
That's fair.
And also in the subsequent years, like there's not a lot of stuff out there because like as soon as this movie came out, they were like, fuck this movie. They didn't go to the premiere. They're like, this is bullshit because he's like saying that she didn't do these paintings.
Yeah.
As soon as this movie came out, they basically were like, we're not doing this anymore. She's just going to like do her paintings. We're not going to sell them.
Live her life.
She's going to like do, whatever. And like the only thing I could find on it since this came out is like, she was like 15 or something.
I read that piece too.
You read it,
yeah.
And she was just like, I don't remember any of this happening. Like, I don't remember the cameras, like any of that. But like my whole family just thinks like the whole controversy is ridiculous, and like they're just kind of like, what do we get ourselves sucked into?
Yeah.
And so like it seems like they still to this day are like, why do people think this? Like I just feel like it seems pretty genuine to me. That's kind of what I'm saying.
Interesting. Yeah. I mean, I did consider your point, which is, you're not nobody is an artist at 3, 4, 5 years old. And so could her style, big air quotes there, evolve over those years? Absolutely. I guess I just saw some sophistication in a few of those earlier paintings that felt so intentional that I found it hard to believe that she would paint them. Like there was one, I think it was like an Asian, it was like a field of color and then a square within the field of color and then abstract art within the square. And It was like,
But this brings up, that's why I think for this movie, the more interesting questions this movie brings up aren't about the father or Marla or anything. It's like, what is art? Especially abstract art. Does abstract art have any value? Is like, who's to say like look at something like if this guy, the dad, actually did these paintings,
doesn't that make them valuable?
Doesn't that make him a master? Because like the woman was like, this is like a masterwork. This is amazing.
Yeah, this could hang in the Metropolitan Museum of Art.
Does that mean the dad is like, we saw the dad's paintings that he admitted he painted. They're not very good. So like, are these paintings good? Like, what makes an abstract painting good?
Yeah, this won't be the last time we talk about the value of art tonight, and I found myself wrestling with the same questions, and to me, it's hard to assign a dollar figure to paintings. They're either priceless or worthless, and that's measured by, would I want this on my wall? Do I want to see this every day? Do I love it? And if the answer is yes, then it's worth an immeasurable amount to you, and not even monetarily, but like emotionally. And I don't know, putting a price tag on this stuff obviously has to be done, but because somebody has to buy it in order to hang it on their wall. But how you do that?
But also, like, let's say Marla 100% did all these paintings by herself.
Yeah.
Can a child create meaningful art? Can a 3-year-old create something that's meaningful? Somebody who doesn't know anything. You know what I mean? And then, like, the one part of the movie where, like, she's, like, offhandedly saying to the camera, like, my 1-year-old brother actually did the entire painting. Did you, like...
Yeah.
And that's just, like, what painting is that? And, like, how could that mean anything? You know?
Yeah.
Like, so, I don't know. Like, plus, like, who gets to decide what's good, who's not? Like, it's just all these questions this movie brings up. And, like, it can't answer these questions. These aren't answerable questions, you know?
No.
But I think that's also kind of what a good painting is, you know? Sometimes you just have to sit with it and you think about the questions it brings up. You ponder it. You think about what does it mean to you. And so I think that's kind of what this movie does really well is you just kind of have to sit with these issues and, like, you're not going to get an answer because there's not really an answer.
I agree. And, you know, the story of the artist, in my opinion, gets lost over time once art is recognized as being, painted by a master. Yeah. Like, I'd challenge the average person to tell me about the life of Matisse or Picasso. You can probably recognize one of those paintings, but do you know much about who those people were? No. And does it matter here over time? No. If the painting is good and it matters to the people who bought it, then who cares who was responsible or how old they were?
Well, one thing they say in this movie is, you know, every painting tells a story. Yeah. Just like every movie tells a story. And sometimes that story involves who did the painting. Sometimes that story involves the director of the movie, you know? Yeah. So I don't know. Like, I'm not one of those people that's like, you have to separate the artist from the art. Does it matter if Marla or her dad did this painting? It might, you know?
Yeah.
So my kid could paint that. It's rated 3.6 overall on Letterboxd. Doesn't have a lot of people logging it in, only a couple thousand, I think.
Really?
4 users have it in their 4 favorites.
Oh, wow.
26% agree with my 4-star rating, including user Jeffrey Overstreet, whose review reads, if you want to start arguments about the definition of art, the definition of truth, the nature of good parenting, or the value of journalism, show this film to a class of 40 freshmen. So I'm starting us off by putting my kid could paint that on the staff recommendation shelf this week for the topic of art.
You know, I had heard about this and was excited to finally watch it, and I'm glad I did. I found myself wondering about this, something that I also wondered about a documentary that I chose for tonight, which is what makes for a great documentary. And for me, just like the other movie I chose, This is a 3-star movie. I feel like I've seen it and I don't need to see it again. I enjoyed it, but that's not to take anything away from it. It did exactly what it was supposed to do, in my opinion. Yeah. Even though, to your point, the documentarian injected himself a little bit. But I don't know. I couldn't help but to wonder, what would I need in order for a documentary to become a 4 or 5-star story? Maybe it just needs to surprise the hell out of me. Maybe. I don't have an answer, but this was fun. This was a surprising watch.
Yeah, it's a good one.
It made me angry, but that's just because of my take on it.
We'll get back to that.
Yeah, I'm sure. Maybe I wonder if any of my movies made you angry tonight. All right. Well, I am going to take us to 1998 with my first film.
Good year.
Yeah, good year. Almost a great year.
Almost.
Like 12 months away from being a great year. And this is from the Chickaboom section of the store. My first film is Great Expectations. So, back of the box. Loosely based on Charles Dickens' classic novel Great Expectations, is a sensual tale of a young man's unforgettable passage into manhood and the 3 individuals who undeniably changed his life forever. Through the surprising interactions of these vivid characters, Great Expectations takes a unique and contemporary look at life's great coincidences. Tagline, let desire be your destiny. Womp womp.
Sensual.
Sensual, yeah. This is not an erotic movie, but It is directed by Alfonso Cuarón, and he's been on the show before with Children of Men. This is the guy who brought us Children of Men,
Friend
Gravity.
of the Shelf.
Yeah, Friend of the Shelf. This is a modernized adaptation of Charles Dickens' 1861 novel, which transplants the setting from 19th century England to 1990s New York. Central character of Pip is renamed Finn, and instead of becoming a gentleman, Finn becomes a visual artist. And this is definitely different. There's for people who are familiar with the story, all of the commentary on class and industrialization is gone. This is definitely more about love, obsession, and personal growth.
It's fun being rich.
Fun being rich. But yeah, how does it fit this theme? Well, we see the main character of Finn become an artist. The movie immerses us in the art world where the protagonist's life and emotions are expressed through his painting. And his painting's definitely very present in this movie.
Is he a good artist?
So there's a lot of talk about that on Letterboxd.
Because I was wondering, I'm like, these don't look that good.
I love these paintings.
Really?
Love them.
Hey,
all of them.
Then they're good to you.
They are. Yeah, I would hang any of them. I actually remember seeing this for the first time and being like, who is the real artist behind these? I want some of their work. But that guy's name. He's an Italian artist, and he's named Francesco Clementi. This was filmed primarily on location in Florida and New York, and I think you get a good dose of both. We don't get a lot of New York, but we do see New York through the eyes of somebody who's moving there from outside and kind of thrust into this world that's unfamiliar to them, and I like that. So cast here, we have Ethan Hawke playing Finn Bell, and most fans of the podcast know that I'm a huge fan of Ethan Hawke.
I brought him to the shelf quite a few times.
Yeah. He's almost becoming one of those actors who I'll just watch whatever he makes. I'm interested in the decisions he chooses for himself. He made this movie coming off of Before Sunrise. Gwyneth Paltrow plays Estella. She plays a bit of a cunt, but that's just right for Gwyneth. I mean, that's right in her wheelhouse.
I guess so, yeah.
Yeah. Anne Bancroft is also here, and Robert De Niro plays Finn's mysterious benefactor. So why did I choose this? I got to start by saying that Alfonso Cuarón hates this movie.
Really?
He hates it. Ethan Hawke hates this movie. He's described it. He's described the feeling of acting in this as feeling like a poser. Where he was, he felt like his job was just to look pretty and hit his mark. He didn't get along with the director at all. Cuarón and his cinematographer actually call this a completely failed film. And Cuarón rebooted his career after making this and decided to do the movie he wanted to make before going to film school, which was Y Tu Mama Tambien. So what I'm here to say is ignore Ethan Hawke and Alfonso Cuarón.
The artist responsible for this movie are wrong.
Yeah, they're entitled to their opinion, but I actually think there's a lot to love here. As I said, I really love the art that Finn creates. It speaks to me. I would hang this in my house. To me, they're just like drenched in emotion, and they capture his love for Estella when he's painting her. And I also think that Ethan Hawke and Gwyneth Paltrow's chemistry is pretty palpable. It obviously they have a pretty tumultuous relationship, but it works in this weird way, and I think Ethan Hawke does a great job at representing not only a frustrated artist, but a man who's been denied the love of his life for all his life. There's also a really unique visual identity here. The use of color in this film I think is pretty remarkable. It's got a banging 90s soundtrack. The movie's kind of 90s as fuck.
It's weird. It's a weird movie tonally.
Yeah.
I don't think that Charles Dickens. Well, again, I don't know how close this is to the original book.
Loosely based is
but I don't know. It just seems like Charles Dickens doesn't translate to now, or not even now, but even in the 90s, it doesn't seem like it makes sense. Like it seems like they had a hard time figuring out how to tell this story in the 90s.
Yeah.
And they didn't. I mean, a lot of it just doesn't make sense.
Oh yeah.
On that, it just seems like it doesn't, like the Robert De Niro character makes no sense. It is completely out of left field, and like I can see that something like that working in a Charles Dickens novel.
I like De Niro. Now how he came into his fortune after escaping from prison, bit of a mystery. But I do like the fact that I do like the idea that he owes this debt of gratitude to this young kid who helped him out and decides, like, I'm going to pay attention to him in the times before the internet.
Yeah.
and kind of become his sugar daddy.
That's kind of what made me think that, like, this guy might not be a good artist, because he just has this guy who is secretly supporting him, who like might be an idiot when it comes to, like, who knows if he knows anything about art.
Well,
he's just like, this guy I like this kid's painting his picture when he saved me from.
Yeah, I think I do think that's answered a little bit by the fact that De Niro kept that notebook, and there are a lot of little drawings and sketches in there, and somehow his style was consistent from being a boy all the way up to being a man. But
it wasn't just a fixation by Robert De Niro's character.
Right.
It was actual artistic talent.
But yeah, I do love this. I enjoy going back to it pretty regularly, and
I really enjoyed the camera work.
Yeah,
like it looks good. The movie looks good. The Florida estate is super weird vibe. It doesn't seem like it's happening on planet Earth.
Yeah,
but I like the way it looks. I like the way it feels.
And Bancroft's character is pretty great too.
She's I like her. I like Ethan Hawke.
Eccentric in this weird, totally unique way.
Yeah.
The general consensus with Great Expectations was that it was praised for its lush visual style and strong performances, criticized for straying too far from the source material, which I say ignore the fact that it's based on anything. Just go in for what it is and pretend it's not called Great Expectations. Has a 38% Rotten Tomatoes score, 77% with the audiences though. And it about doubled its budget, $55 million on 25. 3.2 on Letterboxd. This gets a 4.0 for me. 14% of people agree with me. I did pluck Corey Everett's 4.5 star review because I thought that it aligned with my take, which is I know Quaron hates this, but he's wrong. So I'm throwing it on the shelf. Great Expectations. A lot of art here.
A lot of art.
Whether you like it or not is to be determined. But yeah, I like it.
Yeah, it didn't quite work for me. It just felt like it had no idea what kind of movie it was trying to be.
Yeah.
And honestly, I blame Charles Dickens for most of that.
Charles Dickens is definitely an author whose work does not translate to film quite like Shakespeare's. It's hard to tell an industrialization story in 2024.
Okay, I'm taking us to 2022 with my next pick.
I'm excited about this one.
The movie is Glass Onion.
Great film.
Written and directed by Rian Johnson. This is filed under Ego Trips. Back of the box. World-famous detective Benoit Blanc heads to Greece to peel back the layers of a mystery surrounding a tech billionaire and his eclectic crew of friends. Tagline, when the game ends, the mystery begins.
Ooh.
That's pretty generic.
Yeah, very.
That could be any murder mystery almost.
Yeah.
They could just play a game.
I don't disagree.
So this is Johnson's sequel to 2019's Knives Out, following the greatest detective in the world, Benoit Blanc. Feels like there's been kind of a slight uptick in murder mysteries lately. Yeah. Kenneth Branagh just did the trilogy of Agatha Christie stories, and then Johnson did Poker Face as a series, which is kind of like a Columbo-esque murder mystery series.
Yeah.
So Ed Norton plays an Elon Musk-like idiot billionaire who has gathered his, quote, disruptor friends to his private island for a weekend-long murder mystery game, which is a classic murder mystery setup.
But they cast a great collection of actors to portray his motley crew of friends.
Incredible. Yeah. Even just like small parts in this it's a Rian Johnson movie. He can get, pretty much anybody, but the script, like all of his movies, is just excellent.
Yeah.
You know, it's sharp, it's precise, it's perfectly structured.
Yeah.
It's also really funny, which on this
Yes.
rewatch I really appreciated.
Yeah.
Like all the characters are a pitch perfect satire of a modern archetype. The look of this movie is tremendous. Again, the production design, the clothes, everything Benoit Blanc wears, I want to wear myself.
Oh my God.
No, it's not really my style, but it looks so comfortable.
Yes.
You know,
Yes.
beach clothes. Also, Ed Norton's beach pants when they first get there. I'm like, that's what I want. That's
Yes.
like my dream. But yeah, the island estate looks amazing. He always just gets those details right.
Yeah.
Like seemingly every rich asshole, Ed Norton has a collection of fine art at his estate.
Yep.
And some of which features him, like every asshole.
Yeah.
And somehow he's gotten his hands on the Mona Lisa, which he's essentially borrowing from the country of France. He's giving them some money. And I think, you know, this is not really the centerpiece of the movie, but it is kind of a climactic part of the movie. This obviously, it's the Mona Lisa.
Oh, yeah.
One of the greatest paintings of all time. This movie genuinely appreciates this painting.
Oh, yes.
You know, like you get an explanation of why this is a great painting, how it became such a great painting. Is it the greatest painting of all time? Maybe not, but like
Right.
it is undeniably amazing.
Yes.
But my one complaint with this movie is what they do with this painting. Because it treats a slight... I mean, I'm not going to go into the murder mystery or anything, but spoilers for the end of the movie, it treats the destruction of the Mona Lisa as some sort of victory.
It does.
And yes, like burning it really pisses off Ed Norton's character, and it destroys his reputation forever.
Yeah.
And that's like the point of it. But also, like, that painting wasn't his. You know?
True.
That painting's that's ours.
Yes.
You know, like, technically it's France's, but like a great piece of art like that belongs to everybody on some level.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, really? Like, I don't know. It doesn't really strike me the right way when they end the movie like that. I'm like, it's kind of a bummer. Like, I get it. It is kind of a bummer, though.
I agree with you. I mean, of the two Benoit Blanc movies, I really enjoyed this. I prefer Knives Out because Knives Out to me didn't feel like it was trying to make a statement about anything.
Yeah.
I feel like this was.
Maybe a little bit.
A little bit.
I thought it was
don't
being
wanna...
funny about what it was trying to say, though.
Yeah, that's fair.
Which it kind of takes the edge off. I hear what you're saying, though.
Yeah. I think you could have pulled this off with a priceless piece of art that this guy happens to have at his house that is unrecognizable.
Yeah.
And
yeah. It wouldn't
still
hurt.
would've worked.
I wouldn't take it so personally.
Right.
You know?
Right.
It doesn't ruin the movie for me or anything. That's just
Yeah.
like my one complaint. I'm like, I don't know if I really like that's how you're going to end it.
I'm with you.
I was like waiting for the moment where they're like, we didn't actually do it, or this wasn't actually the Mona Lisa. But like, no, we burned the Mona Lisa. We destroyed it on screen.
Yeah.
I also just don't like the idea of rich people just owning this stuff privately.
Oh, it's disgusting.
I realize that's like a necessary evil when it comes to art and when it comes to these kinds of things. We're never going to get out of that. And actually, like, we're going to get into some of that in a minute here. But yeah, I don't know. It's just an icky feeling.
It is.
It is an icky feeling.
Yeah.
So this is rated a 3.4 overall in Letterboxd. 1,700 users have it in their 4 favorites, and 28% agree with my 4-star rating.
I'm glad you had this at 4 stars. That's exactly where I have it. I think it deserves that. I could see Knives Out escalating to a 5-star movie for me in the future. But
I think if I had to pick, I would agree with you. I think Knives Out is a little bit better, but I mean, listen.
Give me more Benoit Blanc.
Yeah, I could watch 50 of these.
Yeah. Yes.
So keep them coming.
Yeah. There's, these murder mysteries, some might call them formulaic, but I appreciate trying to solve a mystery as I'm watching a movie. And you can't help but to wonder who's responsible for what as these films are unfolding. And that's great.
And another thing this movie does so great is that it puts all the pieces together for you. It's like that thing that you noticed an hour and a half ago that like it didn't mean anything at the time. You're like, fuck, of course.
Yeah,
you know,
it matters. Of
yeah,
course,
it matters. Yeah. That's why these movies are so fun, because they're just like constructed in a way that, and he knows exactly what he's doing.
Yeah.
Johnson. He's like, because he enjoys it too. He's like, I like this shit. I want to make a fucking Agatha Christie movie.
Yeah.
That makes sense in 2022.
And you have to do that with a detective at the center of the story who is captivating to watch. And Daniel Craig nails it.
Yeah. I wouldn't
good.
have thought he wouldn't have been like the guy that I wanted to be like my murder mystery detective going into these, but he's fucking great.
Yeah, he is. He's got more range than people give him credit for.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm putting this up on the shelf this week for the topic of art.
I'm glad you did. This was a fun run to rewatch. And even though you know the ending and you know who's responsible for what, this is a very rewatchable movie.
100%.
Same with Knives Out.
100%.
There's so much just to take in, and the humor is one of those things, but also just the details and the set design and the wardrobe. It's just, it rewards a rewatch.
Especially to watch how he drops clues throughout the movie as well.
Yes, yeah. Very smart. Well, great pick. I am following up your documentary with a documentary of my own. This is from 2009. I plucked this movie from the Philadelphia is a Depressing Intellectual Slum section of the store. And the title of my documentary is The Art of the Steal. Not to be confused with a Kurt Russell movie from 4 years later by the same name.
Yeah, what's up with that?
I don't know. But yeah, this is a documentary. Back of the box goes like this. A gripping tale of intrigue and mystery in the art world, this film traces the history of a collection of post-impressionist paintings worth billions, which became the subject of a power struggle after the death of its owner, Dr. Albert Barnes. Tagline, the true story of a multi-billion-dollar art heist and how they got away with it. Serviceable?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm intrigued.
Yeah. So this is going to give us an unfiltered look into the art world's underbelly. We get to see some of the often unseen motivations of those who manage and control art, and it exposes the allure of profit and the prestige that comes and can often overshadow an artist or collector's wishes. So a little bit of background: this guy, Dr. Albert Barnes, happened to fall in love with art. He was not somebody who was necessarily connected to the art world, but developed an appreciation for it and happened to collect a lot of pieces of art by artists that would go on to become the masters and amassed them in his house, turned his house into a school, had a very unique and individual way of even just hanging the art in his house. And most importantly, he was committed to keeping this art in his home, which became a foundation, and not wanting it to be housed in a museum or belonging to the city of Philadelphia.
To never be taken off the walls.
Never to be taken off the walls. And it's the documentary does a good job of explaining just how meticulous he was about crafting his will so that this could never happen. And of course, it happens.
Yes. This movie got me so enraged.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's
Enraged.
Yeah, enraged
several times.
Yeah. It's so sad to see what unfolds. And I mean, you know, you can probably tell for those who haven't seen this that things do not go the way of Dr. Albert Barnes, and eventually his collection is relinquished and turned over to the exact people that he did not want to be in control of it. But
it's like a personal animosity that has lasted generations, and you can just see it happen over time.
Well, I think what's especially frustrating is his mission was so pure. He wanted this to be. There's a section in the movie where they talk about how if an art collector had approached him to see his collection, he would probably have said no. But if a plumber came to him and was like, "I'd love to see what you have on your walls," he would welcome that guy into his house. And that I think that demonstrates his attitude toward art, and that it doesn't belong in the hands of or on the walls of the people who are just committed to selling it for profit and making money off of it.
I understand. I mean, obviously, like, what happened to this collection is a travesty, and I don't know what's gone on since this movie came out. Maybe you'll get into that a little bit, but he is a private collector who's hiding this stuff in his house, though, and so I do understand and even sympathize with the idea that, like, people this needs to be in a place where other people can see it.
Right.
Especially if it's not meant to be just like a private collection where some rich guys just,
Yeah.
But the people who move it out of the foundation, they're doing it in very poor faith, and they're basically lying about a lot of stuff to get it out of the house.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I agree with you. I do feel like this collection deserves to be seen, and it deserves to be seen in the way that he had it in his home, because there's a lot of care put into that. What ends up eventually taking place is that this gets moved to a building that the city of Philadelphia erects on the side of the parkway, which is perfect to attract tourists and can get people in the doors, and they can use it as an opportunity to raise money constantly. And that's what they're doing today. What you're describing in terms of, yes, people should see this, could have been achieved. And the documentary gets into this, that they could have simply made some repairs to this home, devoted the money that ultimately went to building a new building to ensuring that this one stood exactly where it was and that more people could get to this. The fact that it's just far enough removed from the city of Philadelphia that they can't use it as a tourist attraction is probably what ultimately drove the decision to get it out of where it originally lived.
I mean, I think when the politicians get their hands on it, of course they're going to think like, yeah, we can get more tourists in, we can make some money as a city, we can get people to like stay in hotels and all this stuff. But it really seems like the kernel of this was like the owner of the Inquirer.
Yes.
And like that family who like had like a personal problem with Barnes.
Vendetta.
And they hated each other, and Barnes hated the idea of the upper society of Philadelphia. He hated all of those people. And I think this wouldn't have even come to the desk of the mayor of Philadelphia and the governor of Pennsylvania if there wasn't a billionaire family trying to basically pry this collection out of this guy's hands.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. At the end of the day, this didn't have a lot to do with art between those two guys who were feuding with one another. Mm-hmm. I mean, it did, but at the same time, they just hated each other. Yeah. And at a certain point, they were constantly looking for ways to piss the other one off.
Exactly.
And that vendetta just endured for generations. So it's fascinating and incredibly irritating to watch everything unfold, because each step of this story just becomes a little bit more frustrating than the last one, and it does a great job of getting you upset and angry about what charitable foundations actually stand for and what they do with the money that they raise. But
it's obnoxious just to hear about like a $4 billion so-called charity.
Yeah.
Like, well, fuck you. Why do you have so much money if you're a charity? Do something,
right. Absolutely. And speaking of money, one thing that I found incredibly fascinating was they have a lot of art critics who, especially at the beginning of the film, talk about the value of this collection. And my mind was boggled because they describe similar works of art by the same artists that sell for tens of millions of dollars, and explain that what actually lives in the Barnes Foundation is worth multitudes of that.
Yeah, like, oh, it's 10 times that or whatever.
Yeah. And you get into numbers that are just impossible to fathom, like hundreds of billions of dollars.
Because it sounds like he accumulated these paintings before they were valuable. before people appreciated this generation of artists, he was like, no, this is the good shit.
Yeah.
And so,
I like this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, decades later, it's like, oh, it's actually worth hundreds of millions of dollars. But also it goes to show you, if you have a foundation that's dedicated to something like art, like you got to get the right people to be in charge of it.
Oh, yeah.
You got to get somebody, you got to have some sort of like a business aspect to it that can because he had his right-hand woman, basically a second in command, because he died young. Barnes died young. And his second in command, she was into art, but she also knew what the fuck she was doing.
Yeah.
And as soon as she died, then it was like a bunch of artists running the shit, and they had no idea. They had no idea what to do, So they had to figure out some sort of a structure where somebody who knows how to maintain the building and keep money coming in somehow, and also understands the value of this art. They didn't have that. They had a bunch of artists who were just whatever, and so money was just disappearing.
Yeah.
And so you need a balance somewhere, and maybe his will isn't followed to the letter, but there's ways to make this work. I don't know.
Yeah. It goes to show that no matter how bulletproof you think your will is, words on paper aren't going to be enough in the long run.
Eventually they fade.
Yeah, and you're right. It would have taken the right people generation after generation to protect this guy's legacy and his collection, and at a certain point they just ran out of those people.
Yeah.
Which is sad but true. So, so I'll say one last thing on this, and it relates to why I chose this. I do love that there is a clever play on words with the title, where when you reverse art and steel, the movie becomes The Steel of the Art, and that's ultimately what it's about.
Yeah.
General consensus here is that it was the film was acclaimed for its thorough investigation and compelling storytelling. Some critics felt that it presented a one-sided view. I don't feel that the documentarians inserted themselves here. I think that this is just the people involved. You see what happens.
No one would on the other side, quote unquote, would talk to them.
Yeah, yeah,
because they're probably ashamed of what they did.
Yes, yeah. This grossed approximately $550,000, which was a solid performance for a documentary with a limited theatrical release. It has a 3.6 out of 5 on Letterboxd. I haven't decided yet where this lands for me. I think it's a 3-star movie. I don't know that I need to see it again. And I know the story, it pisses me off, and it's very interesting, but yeah, it's probably a 3-star movie.
It's a 4-star movie for me.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, I really enjoyed it.
Oh, good. I'm glad.
I mean, anytime a movie can make me this angry, it's doing something right.
Yeah. It will make people angry. I couldn't help but to laugh at the user Miff's review, where he or she said, "My dad wanted me to watch this." That's the extent. Their dad wanted him to watch this. I think you should watch this for our theme. It's a compelling look at some of the more underhanded and dark sides of the art world and what happens to people's collections.
The good news is we can go visit this collection now.
We can go see it.
We can go see it where I guess we couldn't before. So
that's true.
There's always that. Okay, I'm going to take us to 1966. The movie is Blow Up.
Blow Up.
Filed under Zoom and Gloom. Back of the box. A successful mod photographer in London whose world is bounded by fashion, pop music, marijuana, and easy sex feels his life is boring and despairing. But in the course of a single day, he unknowingly captures a death on film. Tagline, sometimes reality is the strangest fantasy of all.
I don't love that tagline, but it's a compelling premise for a movie and a great movie.
It is a great movie.
Yeah.
This is also kind of a murder mystery.
Yeah.
Although very little of it is concerned with who committed the murder or actually what happened.
Yeah.
We follow a photographer as he goes about his business in London, mostly just wandering around taking pictures. And some of the pictures he's taking are of a couple he stumbles across in a park. And when he gets home later, he develops the film, which is that what you do? Is that how is that how that used to happen? And he finds evidence of what seems to be murders, or of one of their murders. If you haven't seen this, but you have seen Blowout by Brian De Palma, this all sounds very familiar. This movie was the basis for that one. I don't know if it's like officially a remake.
Yeah, I think it's something of a loose interpretation, much like we got with Great Expectations.
Yeah. They switched the photography out for sound recording in that movie, but it's kind of the same story.
Right.
I love the setting of this.
Oh, yeah.
There's just something really cool about London in the 60s. The mod style, the cars. The clothes are cool and hip. Second clothes movie of the night.
Oh, yeah.
But like the clothes in the 60s, especially in like the London 60s, were like, they're cool and hip, but they also just look really comfortable at the same time.
Yes.
Like,
and you're a man who appreciates clothes for comfort.
100%. I don't care what it looks like. If it's uncomfortable, I'm not wearing it.
Right.
But like this stuff is like, it all looks comfortable. Like even like the stuff like the women are wearing, and it's like, that looks like.
It's flowy.
Yeah.
And flowy is often comfortable.
Yeah. The Yardbirds are the band in this movie, and that scene is like kind of hilarious.
It is.
Because it's this club, this entire club of like supposedly cool people watching this like hot young band play rock and roll, which was kind of new still at the time. And almost nobody is moving. Everyone's just standing there. Yes. And I'm like, is that really how people watch concerts? I mean, I know that people used to sit down for concerts.
Yeah.
I don't know. There's like a couple people dancing in the back, but like nobody's even like nodding their head, tapping a toe. They're just standing there. And it's like, is this supposed to be like a horror movie thing, or is this just how people acted at concerts? I couldn't quite tell. Is it trying to be weird?
It definitely made me wonder, what was it like to go to a concert in the 60s?
I mean, I think it was more like that than it's like today.
Yeah.
But I wonder if this was like an exaggerated version of that to make it seem weird, or if that was just like, cool people don't move at concerts.
Yeah, we're above that.
More than any of our other selections tonight, this movie is about the artist's lifestyle.
Yes.
It's really not, like we said, not concerned with the plot necessarily. Like, stuff happens, kind of.
It's kind of Antonioni's thing. It's just like, stuff happens.
Yeah, stuff happens, and there's people there when it happens.
Yeah.
But this photographer, he's kind of like the classic dirtbag artist.
Yeah.
He's like living this hip life. He's hanging out with models. He's going to cool places. He's driving fancy cars.
Yeah.
But also, like, I don't think he's changed his clothes in 3 days.
No.
He's just like a total dirtbag.
Yeah.
So he's a photographer. So we get to see some of his art. We get to see how he does his art. But we also get a very brief look into another art form. And that art form is pantomime.
We do. We get that.
And I just wanted to bring it up because, like, I'm reluctant to come out against any art form because who am I to say what's a valid art form?
Right.
But I think this might be an exception I'll make.
Okay.
Mimes I don't know. I don't know how you feel. No, of course not. Do they do it for anybody?
Well, we got some miming in Open Your Eyes, which I brought to the shelf in the past. You didn't comment on the miming in that.
I don't remember it as well.
She was a mime in a park.
Yeah. I mean, I didn't like it. Nobody likes mimes.
No, I don't.
I understand the point they're making, but
yeah, no, I'm not stopping what I'm doing if I see a mime in the park to be like, hey, let's go watch the mime.
What's to watch? You're pretending to do something.
Yeah,
It seems like one of the it's kind of like improv comedy. Like, I understand why you do it. I don't understand why anybody watches it.
Well, you're preaching to the choir on that
one. Anyway,
I'm with you on this. I'm not critical of your criticism of miming. It's nonsense.
Yeah, it's complete nonsense.
Yeah.
So Blow Up, it's rated 3.8 overall on Letterboxd. 1,800 users have it in their 4 favorites. 29% agree with my 4-star rating, including Chingy, who says, nothing blew up, but it was still pretty good.
Yeah. This is not my favorite Michelangelo Antonioni movie. That belongs to La Ventura. This was Antonioni's first English language movie. And I think that might be what... there's something about this that feels like he is a little out of place, or not out of place, but maybe less comfortable with the film that he's making. I still love it. I think it's great. I'm with you on 4 stars. But yeah, he's a fascinating filmmaker, and I think he tells his story really well. It's fun to watch, and it definitely immerses you in what the art world must have been like in the 60s in London, and that's a fascinating place to occupy for 2 hours.
I think that the discomfort is kind of part of the vibe of the movie.
Yeah.
You know?
What did you think of the runtime on this?
What is it, like 111 minutes?
I thought it was a little longer, but it feels a little long to me.
Yeah, I think that's partially just because it was made in the 60s. There was a different pace to things, 60s, 70s movies. I mean,
or
that
that
didn't
there was
seem slow to me. It was just kind of like a hangout movie. Like, I think that's part of
it. It is definitely a hangout movie.
I think that's part of it. Like, nothing really happens. You know, just kind of have to like just pick up the vibe and smoke a joint along with them and kind of just go with it.
Maybe what I'm responding to is exactly what you called out, in that I just wish any of the minutes we spend watching miming were taken out of the movie.
Maybe that was it. You're like, this movie seems about 3 minutes too long.
Yeah, but this is great. This was put on my radar by a great documentary that follows just what happens in the late 60s into early 70s to film, and just the way that storytelling changes in cinema. It's a documentary called A Decade Under the Influence.
Oh yeah.
And yeah, we get a taste of this and a lot of other movies that just represented a turning point for cinema. So worth checking out for a lot of reasons, but a great pick for the theme of art.
Absolutely. Yeah, nothing blows up, but still putting it on the staff recommendation shelf this week.
Temper your expectations if you're looking for explosions.
What you're saying.
Yeah. All right. Well, that brings me to my final pick of the night, and I'm going with The Good Thief from 2002. I got this from the heroin section of the store. Back of the box. Nick Nolte stars as Bob Montagna, a seasoned American gambler and thief living on the French Riviera. Down on his luck and battling a heroin addiction, Bob decides to execute one last heist, stealing priceless paintings from a Monte Carlo casino. As he assembles a crew of eccentric criminals and navigates a web of deception, Bob must outsmart both the authorities and his own demons to pull off the ultimate score. Tagline here is, "All roads don't lead to salvation." Which, again,
a lot of bad
leaves
taglines.
A lot to be desired.
Well,
yeah.
A lot of mediocre taglines. That one might be bad, though.
Yeah, that I don't think that one works. No. So this is a crime thriller directed by Neil Jordan. Thriller might be the wrong word, but nevertheless, it's a heist movie. It's a reimagining of the 1956 film Bob Le Flambeur by Jean-Pierre Melville. And the character of Bob Montagna is essentially the mirror image of the character in Melville's movie. Which
is he related to Joe Montana?
You might. It's a good question to ask. I imagine no, but yeah, this retains the essence of the original character, which is a gentleman thief with a penchant for risk. Puts him in a contemporary setting, and yeah, it's got some themes of luck, blurred lines between good and bad, and I think most importantly, it's set against the backdrop of the French Riviera, which is a wonderful place to be. So, yeah, you know, the role of art in this is something of a prop. I mean, it's just it functions as a thing that people want to steal. There is a incredible collection that's housed at this casino in Monte Carlo, and Bob intends to steal it. It happens to be the actual paintings are in a separate location, and they have to work through this elaborate heist to get it to take it away. So Neil Jordan, known for films like the Crying Game and Interview with the Vampire. Definitely a bit of a left turn for him with this. He in interviews for this, he talked about being fascinated by characters with flawed characters that were seeking salvation. He was interested in how Bob's addiction and desire for one last big score could lead to, both his downfall and potential redemption. But yeah, there's also some, I don't know, I hesitate to call it gimmicky, but some stylized filmmaking at play here that I don't think ages so well.
What year was this again?
This was 2002.
Yeah, this seems like a 2002, like, remnants of the 90s style.
Yeah.
Like the 90s cool style that was, like, kind of working its way through the movie culture at the time. It didn't bother, that didn't bother me too much.
Yeah, it's not so much a knock, just more of like a relic of a bygone era, I think.
It's an indie look.
Yeah, for sure. So Nick Nolte, who plays Bob Montagna, this is my favorite Nick Nolte role.
Okay.
This might not surprise you, but Nolte admitted in an interview that he took a small injection of heroin to prepare for this role. He claims that to play such a character
Every day?
No,
just
no,
once?
no.
Okay.
I think just once.
Every day.
Neil, it's for the part. I just got to get into the
Just once. Every day.
Yeah, he said that he required the feeling of addiction in order to know what it was like to play a heroin junkie, which says to me, it's like, sure, Nick. Yeah. You just wanted to get high.
Yeah, it's also like not how doing something once is. You don't understand addiction when you do a drug once.
Right.
He was kind of, he was pretty grumbly, I would say.
Oh, very
Very
grumbly.
hard to understand.
Yeah, but that's kind of his thing. He's always kind of hard to understand.
I feel like the movie, it was kind of hard to understand. It was the whole thing was kind of grumbly and mumbly.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I watched this with the subtitles on.
Yeah, okay. I honestly didn't understand what was happening. I was like, how did this? Wasn't sure how the heist worked.
There's a lot of characters who are speaking English where English is not their first language.
A lot.
And I think you need to watch this with the subtitles. Bob's there's a character that Bob takes under his wing, played by the actress. I'm going to struggle with her name. Nutsia Kukundziande. She's a Georgian actress.
Okay.
And I loved every scene that she was in. I think that she was fabulous and just had this weird allure to her that I couldn't take my eyes off her.
Yeah, she was pretty good.
Yeah. There's an actor named Checky Cairo who was in La Femme Nikita and Bad Boys. Ray Fiennes makes an appearance here as a character named Tony Angel. He has a bit of a bit part, plays a guy with a hilarious name. He's not cited in the credits in the cast for this movie, but he is credited under technical assistance as the fine arts advisor for this movie.
Okay.
Sure. So why did I choose this? I'm going to start by saying that I do have some problems with this movie. Like I said, it's stylized in a way that might be off-putting to some. I don't think it's a big problem. There is a scene near the end of this movie where Bob goes to this casino, gambles, and never loses. He treats the casino as an ATM and just wins millions and millions of dollars.
That's what I couldn't understand. I thought they were saying that's part of the heist. And I'm like, did he figure out a way to beat the casino and they just didn't tell us? That's why I got confused. Or you just think he was just winning?
I think so. The part of the heist that involves the casino was just that he needed to be there so that he couldn't be attached to the stealing of the paintings.
Right.
But
won like $100 million from the casino or something.
I don't think that we were supposed to believe that he had a way of beating a casino, but that he was just lucky, and that is complete bullshit to me.
And I'm like, but like you didn't need to do the heist if you can win $100 million in 2 hours at the casino.
Just go gamble.
Yeah. That's why I'm like, that's why I was like, this has to be part of the heist, and I just missed that part of the movie. Yeah. But I guess not. Maybe,
the Georgian actress is his good luck charm. But my God, it's hard. It's a hard pill to swallow.
Yeah.
So that I also think that the heist is relatively unimaginative. For me, heist movies are almost like biopics. They follow a formula where you have somebody who needs to steal something, you assemble a motley crew of people. It doesn't look like they're going to get away with it. They do.
They do.
And that's how all of these
it turned out everything that went wrong was part of the plan.
Right, yeah. But I don't think that's why this is worth watching. It's certainly not why I am here or keep returning to this. I find that the characters are very interesting. Their motivations are interesting. Their interactions with each other are really compelling. I would say forget about the art heist. Forget about what they're trying to steal, and rent this from us for the compelling cast of characters, 2 great performances from Nolte and the Georgian actress, and get a little dose of crazy Ralph Fiennes, and enjoy the time in the French Riviera. Just let the international vibes wash over you. That's what I think is what makes this movie great.
I want to see the movie about the guy that walks into the casino and wins so much money that the casino runs out of money.
Yeah.
Where's that movie?
Yeah. Well, that might be this movie.
Yeah, it was. Well, it was this movie. We didn't see how that happened.
Yeah.
I didn't hate this movie. I just felt confused by it.
It's especially a little hard to follow with the characters not being experts in English, apart from Nolte, who does a bad job of speaking it.
But not you explaining that it was just like a hot streak he was on at the casino. I'm like, oh, that's what I didn't get.
Yeah,
it was it wasn't part of the story.
But it's the hottest of hot streaks. It's an incredible amount of money that amazing. He wins. General consensus here was that The Good Thief received some positive reviews for stylish art direction and strong performances. Critics actually liked Nolte's performance of Bob and Jordan's atmospheric storytelling. It's had a very modest box office return. It made $5.8 million on a budget of $30, which is bad.
It happens. It happens sometimes.
This has a 3.3 on Letterboxd. 3 people have it among their favorites. 16% agree with my 4-star review. Like I said, I don't care. I love this. I think that it's just a fun world to live in and occupy. And we get enough of the not heist stuff that, I think there's some things to appreciate here. James LaFleur said in his review for this, a Melville remake that feels like a Michael Mann movie but looks like a Wong Kar-kai movie about heroin-addicted thieves from the director of The Crying Game and Mona Lisa. Why resist it? So, there you have it.
Yeah, it was a fun watch.
Yeah.
Fun watch. I don't think it worked for me 100%, but glad to check it out.
Good, yeah. It's got just enough art to fit our theme.
There's definitely art in this movie.
There is art.
No doubt.
Speaking of art, put your paintbrushes down. We've talked about artwork, admired some of it, stolen some of it, debated the value of it, the whole 9. And the 6 movies that fit our theme for this evening are My Kid Could Paint That, Great Expectations, Glass Onion, Art of the Steal, Blow Up, and The Good Thief.
Find us on the internet at rewindvideopod.com, and don't forget to subscribe, share, like, and or review the show.
Rob, next time we are revisiting a theme we both loved from the first season of the show. And the theme we chose to go back to is man versus animal.
Customers demand it.
Yeah. There's more animal movies.
There's way more animal movies.
Yeah, and we're going to get into them. Maybe we'll see some point of view shots of the creatures that are at odds with man.
I think we will.
I hope we do. In the meantime, feel free to hit us up for a movie to watch. And of course, we will see you next time.
Be kind. Recommend. Hail Satan.